Well. Good evening, everybody. Russ the West Ham Network. Hope you're safe and well. Thought I'd come on and do a live. Haven't done a live for a while, so I thought, do you know what? I thought we've got the 𝗴𝗁𝗪𝗧 stuff to talk about. That seems to be gathering a bit of pace at the moment, and so I thought I'd come on, have a chat with you all this Friday night. Obviously, Chelsea 5:30 kickoff tomorrow. We've got the preview show in the morning with Henry, the Chelsea fan, and Stat Attack, and all that type of stuff. And then we've also got, the starting 11 show. We've got Connor and Ben doing the pre-match for the watch along and all that type of stuff. So, in terms of where we're up to with 𝗴𝗁𝗪𝗧, good evening, Essex Bricks. Hope you're well. I've got I got a bit of Lego for Christmas. Mrs. Budden always gets me a bit of Lego to keep me busy, and I'm using every day. I got the Game Boy, brilliant, really good set, and she did buy me a puzzle, but I had to break it down. But yes, every Christmas I get one bit. Anyway, in terms of where we're up to with 𝗴𝗁𝗪𝗧, it's been quite interesting, actually. It's somewhat of let's go to the beginning. So this morning we spoke about 𝗵𝗏, Axel. And Axel was basically saying, and coming out of the club, and actually, let's go back a bit further. Let's go back to like 2 days ago. 2 days ago, according to 𝗟𝗏𝗪𝗓, their senior source, when it was 20% chance that Axel was coming, and then in that sort of 48 hours, it's somewhat accelerated, and then we had talk on late last night, Fabrizio Romano saying pretty much it's going to be a done deal, it looks like. X was saying the same thing. And Chelsea were happy to sanction it. And that was on the basis of then getting in 𝗵𝗏𝗘. However, 𝗵𝗏𝗘 doesn't want to play ball. So sort of about 10, 11 o'clock this morning, then you sort of broke that it was being put on hold for the time being. Then it seems we've been on Scrabble mode and trying to, and it's crazy, and again, regardless of who's in charge or whatever, or whether you got a sporting director or where you haven't, we always seem to be still running around like headless chickens in the last couple of days. And that's what it seems like at the moment. And so 𝗴𝗁𝗪𝗧 and that was a name we were linked to a long time ago. Pre-Nuno. However, we're led to be believed that West Ham have initially gone in with a loan offer to Southampton. That's been rejected, unsurprisingly. They don't want to let him go on a loan deal, rather. They've been told that the club narrative coming out of Southampton is they don't want to sell him. We're led to believe that Taylor is keen for the move, and he was keen when West Ham approached him last year. And again, last year was a loan with option to buy. I think it was about 20 million quid. I think it was 2.5 million and 17.5 million based on option or obligation, whatever it is. Now we're sort of fast forward, must be 12 months in all honesty. We're in the sort of same position again. And we're led to believe that, again, Taylor is happy. He's happy to, ideally wants to move, but he's happy to stay at Southampton. Southampton don't want to sell him. However, it looks like if we have any chance of getting a centre half in, we have to pay the dollar. Now, just to add another layer, according to reports, it does seem that this is someone that Nuno wants. And what is quite interesting, if that's true, is that goes against all of his other sort of policies, really, because actually he's a Salthouse client. He's not a Mendes client. He's a Salthouse client. Now, as I said, Southampton reckon he's not for sale. However, I think it's fair to say that if we came in with an offer, they can't refuse. Give him an offer, he can't refuse. Then he would be in a West Ham shirt by 7 p.m. on Monday. Will we do it? I don't know. Is it kidmanship? Articles and news coming out saying West Ham hold the advantage because of the strong working relationship with 𝗴𝘁𝗵𝗘, who obviously is representative of 𝗴𝗁𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 I mean, last week he was keen to go to Burnley, back to Burnley, where he spent a lot of time playing there as well. So it's, I mean, his family up north as well, and I mean, you know, obviously he wants to play Premier League football as well. There's a few Southampton boys at West Ham, you know, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 Fernandez as well. You know, we've done business with Southampton quite a bit. You know, you've got Flynn Downs, you've got 𝗏𝗏 again. So again, sort of these sort of negotiations, these relationships could help in negotiations. But again, it comes down to money, isn't it? How much money, you know, will we spend, and you know, could we spend it elsewhere a bit more better? Hammers fans said, why don't we just get Cresswell? Well, I think realistically, I think Cresswell is going to cost you probably £10 million more. I reckon with Cresswell, you're looking at about 30 million Toulouse want offering for him. Toulouse for Toulouse to lose Cresswell, it's going to cost £30 million. And I don't know. I mean, 𝗴𝗏𝗏𝗏 20 million, maybe. And that's what we offered him last year. But, you know, the fact is Southampton 15th in the Championship, they're not going to get promoted. So, you know, are they, although they publicly want to keep him, I think if anywhere around the 20 million, I think we'd get him. Bellis is only 24 as well. So he's got his formative years ahead of him. He plays predominantly on the right, so that would assume that would be in direct competition with maybe 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏, because 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 seems to be having that left side of the sort of back two, and obviously gives an option to play a back three as well without using Matt Skillman. Daz, good evening to you. Hopefully we can get a result tomorrow. Hopefully. Be interesting to get your thoughts about what you think about the game tomorrow. For me, I just think there's, I can see us getting a draw. I think a Desmond. Marcus has just finished work. Bless you. What's the news? Well, not really much news, to be perfectly honest. As I said, I think BBC have reported that West Ham have Southampton have turned down a loan offer for 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, insisting he's not for sale. But we know everyone's got a price, as the $1 million man once said. So that's where we are at the moment. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is keen to move. As I said, he was interested in the Burnley. His family up north, obviously comes from Manchester boy. But as Henry, I was talking to, he was on Sky Sports, and the guy and Dara, the Plymouth Preston chairman, he was talking about Cole Palmer's apparent homesickness from Chelsea to Manchester. He was like, you can get a train for 2 hours. So it's a bit higher up. You know, he was Southampton, so London is a couple of hours up, and then obviously a couple of hours to get to Burnley and get to Manchester. Ken says, evening, Ken. Hope you're well. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 has got to be good, even if it's just for colour. He is young and would have a sell-on value, so no loan, just buy. Well, the loan's been rejected. That's reported on the BBC website this evening. So it would be, if they want him, they've got to pay for him. And that's the situation we're in now, you know. And you got to think, I mean, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, Cresswell, I mean, both are, you know, young British centre-halves. Cresswell, I think, would probably cost you a bit more money. And there's maybe a slight risk. He's obviously played less Premier League football than 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Should have got Cresswell if you had to pay money. Agreed, but as I said, I think the fee would be a lot more than I think 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is. And, you know, you got to think in terms of the position. I mean, would he come in as, would he take over from 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, or would he be there as cover for 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏? That's the issue. If he's cover, It's a complicated one, isn't it? And I think it's so easy for us as fans to go, just buy him. As I said, question I want to come to West Ham. You could put £30 million into Toulouse's hands, but if you don't want to come West Ham, don't want to come West Ham. But let's be believed that Taylor wants the move, or is up for the move. So again, it's all paper talk. A reasonable fee would be shrewd signing, decent third choice, and someone who has to start putting the puzzle together if possible. Championship squad. That's a very interesting angle, Simmons. You're right. And you have to assume that players you bring in, so someone like 𝗵𝗁, for example, that is for me, a punt to try and get us out of this problem. You know, it's a 6-month deal in essence. Fulham only get the other bit of the money if we stay up. And if we do stay up, 𝗵𝗁's got a 1-season option on that 6-month deal. In terms of players we bring in, you should have that in the back of your mind that, you know, we could go down. We are in the relegation spot with 5 points adrift. And so someone like 𝗵𝗁, if we did pay 20 million quid for him, for example, I just picked the number at the sky. But if we did, you would assume that, A, you could sell him on if you wanted to one of the promoted clubs. But if you don't, you're right. There is the ability to him to be one of the central, you know, alongside of 𝗵𝗁, for example, or Ezra or Idris, you know, as a centre-back partnership to try and get us back up. Bloody good point. GP says, if we don't sign a centre-back and drop, who should fans blame? Nuno, Sully, or both? I think I genuinely believe it's a combination. I think he gives me sort of Moyes vibes in terms of his dithering a little bit. And there's no doubt that there's people he wants, and maybe there's people that he's probably gone to the board with and they've said no. I have no doubt about that. But similarly, there's probably players that the board have suggested, and he said no. And so I imagine I think it's a combination of the two, in all honesty. I've just started to think we might have a chance of staying up for our first 11, but any injuries and we are done. You're very true. You're very true. I think there is, I think that 11, we did the starting 11 for the game tomorrow, and maybe with the exception of the left back, I think you'll see the same side again. And just said that side is good, but a couple of injuries, and the bare bones have kind of been ripped out, really, in some respects, in some positions. In terms of the squad depth, you know, it does obviously give you opportunities for maybe some of the academy players to step up as well. The ones who are still there, likes of Lewis Orford, he can now play in the first team. You know, now it's January. You know, in essence, he's not officially on loan with Steve Finch. Pardon me. And therefore, he can now play in the first team where he had to be playing under 21s. It does worry me slightly, particularly the forward line. But I suppose, you know, you can bring Wilson back in. Yeah, there is the opportunity maybe of even playing Bowen up top and putting a Dammer on the right. There are some options, but I think, you know, if we can keep this side fit and not suspended as well, which slightly worries me about Tati, because I think he likes the yellow card, then I think we've got a chance. I really do. JWP might tell him not to come. He might do. But they're not in conversation, are they? Because JWP's in Burnley and he's in Southampton. I don't know if they played together. I don't think they did. I'm sure he has a very outside chance of making, so better to be visible in the Premier League than flounder in the Championship. I think that's same with someone like Angel Gomez as well. Obviously, we've been linked with potentially hijacking his move to Wolves. Yeah, there's outside chances for him potentially. He hasn't obviously featured since 𝗵𝗁𝗘's left, but being in the Premier League, the eyes are going to be on you. You know, you're going to have scouts looking at the opposition sides and players, and you know, England scouts, and you're there in front of them. So, particularly in centre half, I reckon. Maverick Panos is improving. He is indeed. Matthew, hope you're well, mate. Do you think Gomez's agent stirring? No, I think there's a genuine interest. I mean, you've got a situation where you've got we've lost 4 midfielders, 3 midfielders, central midfielders, JWP, Rodriguez, Ewing, Paqueta, maybe because that's a central defender. So bringing someone like Gomez in on loan, I think is quite a decent. He's not a domestic loan either, but he counts as a homegrown player as well. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it is. Hopefully, Wim's going to be a tough game. I think we'll probably get a draw tomorrow. 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝗧, 𝗵𝗫, and Kieran and make them centre backs. Well, would you pay for his fee to come over from Australia? Anton's in the chat. Nice to see you. Hope you don't mind me putting this in here, but is there anyone selling a ticket for Chelsea away? Paul's gone for 3-1. Any relation, Paul Bone? Problem Southampton have this late and they need a replacement for Bellis. They do. I think the option is, but sometimes when you're in the Championship and you're 15th and you're not really going anywhere this season, do you take the money for him? And, as every month passes, his value will decrease. So, from now in the summer, he might have a few million off because his contracts run down a little bit. 1 run with a run. We could even Stevens with Spurs. They'll do well to get 1 point. Their February is awful. Awful. And, they're still in the Champions League as well. Forest have got the playoffs to contend with in Europa playoffs. I still think that Palace are falling like a stone. The whole Mateta situation is not helping. The Gay, they haven't really replaced him. You've got Oliver Glasner, who's basically said, I'm off in the summer. And we've still got to play him as well. We've got, apart from Forest, we've got to play everyone around us. And that's, for me, is key. Where some of the other clubs might not have, they're not taking points of each other because they're playing sides outside of the playoff spots, the relegation spots. We are very much, we've got Burnley away next week. We've got Man United at home, granted, but then we've got, we still play Leeds last game. We've got to play Bournemouth at our gaff. We've still got to play Wolves at our gaff. We've still got to play Crystal Palace away. It's still in our hands. It still is. I know it doesn't look like it because the other sides are, but you nick 3 points off Crystal Palace, and with their 7 points clear or 8 points clear, it's now 4 or 5 points, isn't it? And so that's when it's going to start, and it's going to. And 1 week it's going to be 2 points. Next week it's going to be 4 points or 5 points, and then it's going to be like this throughout the whole season. But I definitely think we're going to drag a few more teams in there. Adama, oi. Another hard game tomorrow. In fairness, the Nuno players really are improving. We all know the rather bizarre decision he's made. I think it's bizarre to us, but I genuinely think he needs, and this is no disrespect to Nuno, but sometimes how old people do mad things because they think it's right, and there's no one to bounce off. And I genuinely believe that he hasn't had anyone to bounce off. And the likes of Potsy and Robson, they're brilliant West Ham, but they don't know Nuno. They don't understand the way he thinks, the way he talks. So they would almost facilitate what he's saying, back him up. Whereas Paco's coming going, fuck that. No, you're an idiot. No, do this or and you almost like they're, and that's probably where Nuno found his best success at Nottingham Forest when he had his backroom staff next to him. Basically, almost. No, grandma, don't have that. Do this, and it's almost a bit like that. I think he's almost had free reign without any consequence in terms of someone sort of batting for the other side, so to speak, the attacking side of which Paco is. I honestly think if we get a point tomorrow, then we'll dig ourselves out of this. I agree. Diving or preferred from both Nuno. Oh, is it okay? Not okay. I don't think he's good enough. Interesting. Actually, 3 in the squad. The Burton game could be a right pain. Could be. However, I think by then the fact is you've got the under 21s. I think a lot of them could be brought into the side. Although again, there's the slight issue. I think the under 21s will play. They play Boston. They're not Boston. Is it Tamworth? They play. They play Tamworth in the National League semis. I think it's on the Monday after the Burton Albion game, I think. and then they play again, or something. Or they play on the Wednesday. I don't know. There's a lot of games coming up for the under-21s as well. Why don't we get rid of Cornet? Because no one wants him, Wayne. That's the thing. It's very easy to say, right, let's get rid of but no one fucking wants them. No one wants to pay any money. You know, we've had to basically give 𝗟𝗏𝗪𝗔𝗍 just yeah, right, contract's gone, off you go, mate. Good luck to you. We're not getting any money from Valencia for 𝗟𝗏𝗪𝗧. No one wants to lay out any dollar, but it's all about getting him off the wage bill. You know, we could easily rip up Cornet's contract, but that's still going to cost us money to do that. No one wants him, you know, and he's injured, and that's it. I think all the loans and buys are the view of champion. I don't agree with that, Ken. I'll be honest. I think the first couple, I think they're all. I mean, you can see that because the Traore deal is until is for 6 months. So that's not a view for Championship football. It's you know, let's have a go. 𝗟𝗏𝗪𝗧, yeah, I think that's one for the future. That's a punt. See what happens. And again, that's on a 6-month deal, really. So if he doesn't impress, then he's going to fuck off. Otherwise, it costs him $1 million. He might as well just buy him anyway and then just throw him in the 21s and see what he can do. But Tati, I mean, 27, you know, he's kind of in his peak now. Pablo, I can't see us there. Yes, so that's what I'm saying, Tony. We are basically looking at we're lining up a cash offer now for him. And it has legs, and apparently, according to TalkSport, according to Jacob Steinberg, it's at the direct request of Nuno. They went in for a loan bid, which got rejected, and then they've gone back in that. I think that was the loan deal. If it was the loan deal that's been rejected, we haven't put a cash offer in yet. I don't think the finances we get relegated will need transfer fees for the tea-lady clean. Is that me? What about me? Chelsea 1, West Ham 5. Didn't you say that on TikTok yesterday, Ellis? I think you did. No, I'm not at the game tomorrow. I barely get a pass for the home games, as you all know. So, no, we'll be doing the watch-along. Why didn't we go all out for Cresswell? Don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to come to a side in the relegation zone. That's that, you know, and that's the honest truth. We're in a situation now where, you know, we're not a particularly, you know, if a team comes in for a player, that player's gonna look at the table and go, well, in the bottom three, I'm all right. I can stay in Toulouse. I can go to Germany, or, you know, I could go to Marseille or something like that, or I could go to a relegation dogfight at West Ham, where then I could have to leave in 6 months' time. I just don't get it. Yes, I've heard that he's in Euro place now with Toulouse. Well, that's what I mean. He's so, you know. And again, I'm going to get some T-shirts. He uses two to transfer. It's actually 3 to transfer now. You know, because not only is it the buying and the selling side need to be on the same page, but the player does as well. You know, and you know. Look at Lucas, for example. You know, Lucas, there was talk of him going to Chelsea and Tottenham, and basically went, no, I want to go back home. You know, we'd probably got more money out of Chelsea or Tottenham for him. But that wasn't his motivation. His motivation was to go back to Flamengo, and, you know, good luck to him. You know, he seems to be very happy there. Is Golombek injured? Well, anyone who was on my TikTok live yesterday, was it yesterday or Wednesday? 𝗟𝗏𝗪𝗧 was on the chat. 𝗟𝗏𝗪𝗧 was in the chat. Him and Riley Hagan were there. He has a lower back issue, which is he still reckons he'll be out for a couple of weeks. Because I asked him it directly. I was like, "Where the fuck have you been?" Because basically, when I'm doing the under-21 stuff, I just see him walking around in his tracksuit, and I was like, "You're the captain of the 21s. Where, you know, what you do? Well, you were. I think Lewis is now captain, but yeah, a couple of weeks, but he'll be back. Nothing too serious," he said. So there we go. Yeah, it cost them loads in taxes. Like it did. Well, it cost Flamengo an extra. Is it 10%, 15% because of Brazilian tax? Or I mean, obviously we've got until 7 p.m. on Monday. That's when the window officially shuts. And why is it always a window? Why isn't the door? Because the door slams shuts. But anyway, so there we go. What's wrong with a tracksuit? No, I GP. I rock a tracksuit. I bought 1, 2. Is it 3 or 4? I bought 4 for Marks and Spencer's. Autograph, thank you very much. And I'm all for that. A smart tracksuit. But what I'm saying is like he's not playing. He's walking around in his tracksuit, so he's not playing. He's not in, his kit. He's in his civvies. Oh no, I rock a tracksuit. Love a tracksuit. Got a black one. Got a navy blue one. Got a sort of a khaki colour. And then I've got a sandy colour. Lovely. Just interchange the T-shirts. All good. This under-21 player's gone. Do you think that's a better chance to get 𝗵𝗪? Well, not really, because actually we're nabbing one of their players as well. So it's 𝗵𝗁𝗓. He's now gone. He's officially with Spurs now. He signed today with them. And the decision was made internally to do that deal now rather than when his contract comes up. He wasn't going to get one. He wasn't going to get his contract renewed. But if he did it in the summer, then West Ham wouldn't have had the sell-on clause because he would be out of contract. Where now, because he's moved him from one club to another, we have a sell-on clause on that now. So if Spurs do sell him, then West Ham get a percentage of that. We're doing this. We're nicking Frankie Day from them. That should be announced in the next few days. He's an under-18 striking sensation for Tottenham. But in terms of the whole 𝗵𝗪 thing, it's a different. It's different people. The under-21, the academy, and the first team. It's very different in terms of the people involved in the decisions. Got to bounce. Good luck. Good luck, Essex Bricks. 𝗴𝘁𝗏 deserves his chance next season. Does he, though? I don't know. The fact is, he... It's a strange one with George. As I said, if you look at the players that have been offered long-term deals at the club, George isn't one of them. We've exercised our 1 year, our option, so we've got him for another year at the end of this year. And obviously he's gone out back on loan to Bristol. And we'll see how he does then. If we go down, then I think he'll be an integral part of the side next year. But he's at the age now where he has to make a decision what he wants to do. Because he should be playing first team football. And if he's not playing it regularly at West Ham, he's getting to an age where he should be. Same as Callum Marshall as well. I think he's in the same boat. Last year, people like Patrick Kelly and people like that, they left because, to have a decent career playing first team football. 𝗵𝗁𝗓, for example, he's gone to Portsmouth today or yesterday. Not all the academy players will get minutes. And I always say 97%, and I always bang it out, but I think it's good to put it into perspective. 97% of all Premier League academy players never play 1 minute of Premier League football. And the fact of having 2 in the in the squad at least, in the starting squad, in terms of Ollie and Freddie, plus having the likes of Finn around, Ezra's been getting minutes. You've got... My brain's gone. You got 𝗵𝗁𝗓 as well there. Obviously George has been on the bench. Obviously he's on. He's on loan now. We've done well to get those players in, and I think there are definitely some more that we need to sort of start to bring up. But again, it's how they then react when they're training in the first team. If they're not showing Nuno what they can do, then they're not taking their opportunities. You got Mohamed Kante as well. You've got some players, I think, on the peripherals who could step in. So although, you got to think, with 𝗵𝗁𝗓 Rodriguez going, surely that means promoting Kante into that role if we don't buy another centre midfield or get one on loan. I think 𝗵𝗁𝗓 Cage, the defence, we don't really need. just the defence we don't really need. I think Areola's okay. But, sorry, makes him look worse. I think Areola's single-handedly probably kept us in the Premier League at the moment. You know, he pulls off some good saves, and you know, I think yes, his pass completion rate is fucking it's the worst in the Premier League. He's got a 47% pass completion rate. That's appalling. You know, and that's against all other goalkeepers as well. It's one of these areas which is definitely not his forte. I still think we will bring in another goalkeeper. I think as cover, really, more than anything. Fabianski's still a bit injured. Still has his back issue. We've got Finn as third choice. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe bring in someone like 𝗵𝗂, bring in someone like Ortega from Man City, and then loan Finn back out. They have a lot of hope in Finn. You know, he's signed a new longer term deal with the club. Obviously, Jimmy Walker's now the under-21 goalkeeper coach as well. He's very high on Finn, but he needs reps. And you know, he was doing well at Boreham Wood. They brought him back because of Fabianski's injury. So I think if they got another goalkeeper in, he'd go back out on loan. I think that would really help him. Obviously, you've got Mason Terry out on loan as well. You've got Tom Rusto, who's in goal for the moment. Got some good players. Did you see last weekend 3 out of our youngsters that went out? Yes, I did, because we follow. And Tony, watch the Academy show every Monday, 6 p.m. UK time. Won't be 6 p.m. this week, because obviously we've got the transfer window, so we might do it a little bit earlier on Monday. But the only West Ham YouTube channel out there to do a show just on the Academy. Lee Hodges was a few years above me, got 1 appearance. We've interviewed Lee on the channel, and you know, the likes of him and 𝗟𝗂𝗪𝗘 and Adam Newton and these guys, you know, they might have played like a couple of appearances, and they could have stayed at West Ham, you know, being in that sort of, well, the pathway as it was then, in terms of being, you know, just in that sort of group who would get the odd minutes here, maybe a cup game, that type of thing. But, you know, I think Lee summed it up to said, you know, when he got that taste of first team action, he wanted it more, and Harry couldn't give it to him. So then he took the decision to, I think he went to Scunthorpe, I think it was, the Irons, whatever they're called. So not much change there, and played a few hundred times for him. And Izzy did the same with Swansea, I think it was. Adam did the same with Peterborough. And you got to see again, you know, you've got others. There's plenty of others people who are interested in. Forest going loopy again. They've gone for Ortega. We were looking at Ortega as well. We were offered Ortega when we went in for James Trafford recently. Here's a question. Like it, Neil. Russ, we managed to stay up. What comes next season as the funds available? Does staying up just delay what is likely to happen with this board? I think if we stay up, there needs to be a real post-mortem on what's happened. And if we stay up, I think it would be by the skin of our teeth. And also, I think it's been an unusual season, particularly over the last 3 or 4 seasons, where, you know, it's only probably going to be one of the promoted sides that are going to go down, which is highly unlikely. It hasn't happened. You know, the last 3 seasons, in the bottom 3 up, 3 went up, went straight down, and you know there hasn't really been any little bit, but any sort of real like prolonged relegation fears like we've had this year. And I think there does need to be a post-mortem on that. And I think also in the summer, you would hope maybe that, you know, if we stayed up there, he would get some of his staff in, more of his staff. I think that would make a massive impact as well. And there has been some squad. There is, you know, some squad again surgery which is needed. But it's true, as I said, we've currently got a squad which has got players from Pellegrini, Moyes, Potter, Lopetegui, and now Nuno. So what chance has Nuno got? You know what I mean? And so there is definitely going to be a post-mortem, and would be some sort of... and again, the 26-27 season is going to be an interesting season, because we've got a new shirt manufacturer. We'll have new front of shirt sponsors as well, and which could lead also to naming rights for the stadium. And again, this is sort of US revolution. I think would happen, and I think that could even potentially bring in investors as well. Watch the game we sold to Sporting. Yep, we wasn't even. He's not in the academy though, was he, 𝗵𝗂𝗍𝗂? Is Taylor? I think he is. If we stay up, Sullivan will see it as another achievement in CV and will stay. I don't think he will. It hasn't been an achievement at all. I think for me, there probably will be a scapegoat, as is always the prerogative, it seems, with these types of situations. And I just, you would assume if we stayed up, then questions will need to be asked at board level, within the board, in terms of how we got into this mess and what do we need to do to get to not be in this mess again. We don't want to be in this mess, and they don't want to be in this mess as well, because it doesn't look good on them. You know, if the team's not doing well, then naturally there'll be more issues. If the team's doing well, it's like a stadium, isn't it? When the team's doing well, the stadiums are, people moan about it, but not to the extent that if we're losing, it's all the stadium's fault. Do you know what I mean? Tony has a question and really needs applying. Okay. The guy who shares, who owns billions, what he's actually put into the club. So I think to Daniel 𝗵𝗁𝗏𝗏. So Daniel 𝗵𝗁𝗏𝗏 owns 27% of the club. He's the second highest shareholder. And I think it's fair to say, the thing is, for any money he puts in, it would have to be matched by a percentage by the other shareholders. Otherwise, there is a dilution of the shares. So if West Ham put in £100 million, for example, to spend, 47 million of them, is it 47? No, 51. Whatever it is. Basically, Sullivan would have to put his shareholdings percentage into that. 𝗵𝗁𝗏𝗏 would have to put 27%. The Gold family would have to put 25%. Anything else, and then the shares get diluted, which is the issue. Now, there is a situation. Now, you know, under Peer, you know, they're bringing in different rules next year. So there is an opportunity to spend money, but it's never happened really to much extent. You know, money spent does tend to get balanced out later on. So money spent under Styden was balanced out with Declan Rice's money. So there it is. Could you say a wave to Daz, Frog, and Jay as I'm shadow banned? Okay. The only way we get us, Messi Sullivan has to sell his major shares, and Brady would have to sell any shares she may own. But who would they sell them to? That's always the issue for me. And again, it takes two to transfer. It takes two to sell it. You know, there are the shares are, you know, they've been offering a David 25% of the club for months, and no one from via Rothschild, and no one's even come close to sniffing over them. Not even Sullivan or 𝗵𝗁𝗏𝗏𝗏, because technically they could buy those at the agreed price. Because when 𝗵𝗁𝗏𝗏𝗏 came in, I am 99% sure there was a document that said that they could buy each other's shares at an agreed price. So if 𝗵𝗁𝗏𝗏𝗏 really had any ambitions to take over the club, he would have bought those gold shares, because they would have been offered to him as first refusal, or probably second refusal after Sullivan. Sullivan doesn't want to increase his stake anymore. So then you've got, do you want to, you know, anything? Do people really want to buy a quarter of a club that they're never going, that they don't really have much say on? They'll be a minority shareholder, and particularly at £250 million. You know what I mean? That's how much they were selling them for. And there isn't any, unless someone comes in, you know, they'd have to come in and they'd have to, the only possible way I think a takeover could happen, potentially, would be via America/Canada and, what's his face, and Tripp. Because Tripp owns 8% already. So for Tripp to then go in and buy, and say, you know, a consortium buys the 25% off off the Gold family. His 8% then comes in, and then the minority shareholders. That might happen. We don't as a club deserve to stay up. We as fans do, says Adam Smith. What do you think about the fans being banned from having the sign up? Yeah, it's a strange thing, wasn't it? They were signed, was it three game ban by the club, citing fire regulations. But I that's what I don't understand, because surely the kids. But I suppose the kids holding up the "Can I have your thing" is on A4. I don't know. Don't understand it. I bet that no one with any brains at amount will ever buy those shares. Well, that's what I mean. And yeah, I think potentially you could. Is it not 51? Yeah, I think he owns 47 in it. So, which means you could gang up on them. You could do. It would, a hostile takeover. You'd have to basically buy all the other shares up. And someone like Krasinski, he likes to be a silent partner. He does it at Royal Mail, at Sainsbury's, big media company in France. And he likes having his fingers in little pies. Now, there's no incentive for him to sell, really, apart from if he went down, maybe. If we go down, the value of the shares, from being this is, we are $1 billion, $1 billion valued club, according to the top 20 European value thing. If we're in I think we would be, if we went down, the most highest valued club to ever be relegated, and the first $1 billion club to be relegated. So that's something in itself. That's an achievement. And I think it also highlights the fact how ridiculous this whole situation is. And then you're looking at the shareholders then in terms of, do they hold on to their shares in the hope of getting promoted and getting back out and back up into there? Or do they cut their cloth into accordingly and get out and take a hit? I think the chances are, actually, if we went down, probably more likely to stay, because we win more games. There'll be there'll potentially be a fresh optimism about the club. We'll get promoted, and you get that cash injection again. I don't know. $1 billion enterprise, says Kaylee. Maybe Jack, if he takes over, could do better. I think you can judge father like son. Look at Brooklyn Beckham. Will be David probably first, rather than Jack. 𝗵𝗍 is better than Bellis, says Silver Surfer. How are you? Fucking hell. That's been a while. Don't count out Trip. That's what I've been saying, James. I think, particularly with the World Cup over in your way, there's renewed interest in the Premier League. Isn't it something like 3/4 of the Premier League has US owners or part owners? That is one area we've been punting. We've been punting around the US and Canada. We know Tripsmith is good at creating and finding consortiums of people with money. He's done it before, did it throughout his whole career. And with the added bonus that he already owns 8% as well, and that could be transferred into a consortium headed up by Trip. There is, and again, as I said, it's my US sort of hostile takeover. I think Adam from Dad's Our Pod, or formerly of Dad's Our Pod, we talk about this 26-7 season. We've got an American shirt manufacturer. I think we'll end up having an American front of shirt sponsor. Intuit, who are the QuickBooks company, they were having informal discussions. And, we have been linked with American players as well. I think there is and for me, I think that's the natural way of how it's going to work. See, we are all in this situation until Sullivan. Well, the thing is, it doesn't make a difference, because the shares would go down to David. David's a director at the club. and Jack. So I don't think that would make a difference in terms of the ownership, so to speak. Would prefer Far East money. Never forgiven Dick Van Dyke's Cockney impressions. That's probably going well. Again, I think, we have been looking at the Far East, and, we do have a number of Middle Eastern advertising clients, Omar Developments, for example. And, there has been talk of Dubai consortiums being set up. The other day, the Swiss number plate of a big Dubai businessman who's worth like 4 billion quid. He was at the game. I just don't see the appeal for why someone would come in from the Middle East. Yes, for them it's a property play, and we don't own the property. We just don't own the property, or the surrounding area. The surrounding area is owned by Qataris and things like that, but not the stadium itself. And, I think that's always going to be an issue until there's some resolution with the stadium. And then people say, if we get someone else and they'll just go and build a new stadium somewhere. That's billions of pounds. They're not hundreds of millions of pounds. They're not going to do that. They're not having to spend almost $1 billion to buy West Ham and then have to pay another $1 billion to go and build a stadium somewhere. They're not, when they can have somewhere where they only pay £4 million in rent. Neil says, as a private limited company, the shares not available to the public, so performance doesn't come into it. But in terms of what they could sell the club for, it can, won't it? Although it's set, but and again, you can say it's going to be $1 billion, but the club is only worth what investors are willing to pay for the club. And the value of the club will go down. It will go down. Whether they decide to then make that effect on their share prices is another thing. But you're right. You're totally right. I always wanted Steve Harris to buy us, but I doubt he's rich enough. He's probably not, my friend. Evening, London. Hope you're well. What does it take for a hostile takeover? Well, it takes basically everyone to all the other bits to buy out, really, and I just can't see it happening. Russ, what do you think tomorrow? Desmond, why are the shares such a high price from the club? Well, it's the valuation, and again, as Neil Fitzhammer has said, the share prices are set by the shareholders themselves. According to, was it the Forbes list? I think it states that West Ham is worth $1 billion. And also that is backed up by the fact that the 25% shares that David Gold owned are up for sale for £250 million, which values the club at $1 billion. And I agree, we don't own the ground, but it's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. But that's what they're looking at. That's what they want. Will they get it? No. Can't see it. For that exact reason, Kim. Until we own the stadium, which may never happen, and probably will never happen, we, our, what's the word? Attractiveness to investors is highly diminished by the fact that we don't own our stadium. But it's not the be all and end all. You got to think Man City doesn't technically own the Etihad. But that was set up to accommodate football, whereas London Stadium wasn't. I prefer British owners, not less. I fear others might have little sense of history and will end up playing quarters to create more advertising and more bonkers ideas. I agree. But, look at something like United. They were all like brilliant. And Man United, Jim Ratcliffe's coming, brilliant. United, fan, from around the area. Hasn't helped them at all. But in the same way, Newcastle are the richest club in the world by their owners. Do you see that money being spent? No. So I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I know what you mean, Leon. I think, but the fact is with the football ombudsman and stuff like that, I just can't see. Yeah, I mean, I can see us going over there and playing game 39 in terms of the US, but in terms of things like quarters, I think I just can't see that happening. It doesn't happen in MLS, so I can't see it happening in the UK. Sounds like an inverted Ponzi scheme. It does, doesn't it? It does. It does. And I think, Leo, I think everyone would say, if there was a West Ham fan who was a billionaire, good on him. But the fact is, there's not many of them around, or people, because it's their money as well, and it's the reason why rich people are rich is because they don't spend the money. They spend it, when there's minimal risk to it. There's a reason why, rich people are rich, and there's people like us aren't rich because we do spend my money, GP makes a good point. Sully's a British owner. Mike Ashley's, but I don't think it makes a difference. I don't think it does really. I think it's, look at like Bournemouth, they're US owned. Brighton are owned by, they still owned by Tony Bloom. We only have drinks breaks officially we only have drinks breaks when it's over 30 degrees in the UK. The other drinks breaks aren't official. They're just when people get injured. But drinks breaks are official when we have over, I think it's over 30 degrees, which is fair enough. Fair enough. And I would assume even in like the 70s and 80s, if it was absolutely sweltering like that, they would probably have a drinks break anyway. I think we're in a similar position to Brighton in the 90s. I hope we can follow their resurrection. Interesting. Yeah, it's a good point, Neil. I don't think it was in such a worse place as Brighton, because they were in the doldrums, weren't we? But you're right. And I mean, I admire the Brighton model and Brentford in some respect. But I just don't think, I genuinely don't think that West Ham, like us as a fan base, are set up to have that sort of project-based approach. I think you need a sort of old-fashioned old manager role with the club, and we've tried it, and I know we've tried it under Sullivan. It didn't work with Stuyton and stuff. But I just think West Ham, and there's a few clubs around there. I think the more traditional clubs, I think, and the bigger ones as well. I think it's like Man City. Man City, Pep's in charge. Pep is in charge. When he goes, City are going to be not as strong as they are. And it may take a couple of iterations of managers till they get to the situation. Same, obviously, Man United have still never replaced Fergie. Arsenal, when Wenger left, for so long, one-man club. I think, Slot's having that issue at the moment with, Liverpool to some extent as well. And I think someone like West Ham, we want, I think it's more of a traditional setup. I don't think it works when we have this European style. We're not really set up for a European style of management and a director of football and, and a head coach. And, I think although we want that, that's going to take so much iterations and so much time and to get the system set up correctly that I think, I genuinely don't think it works well for us. I think we are until a multi-billionaire comes in and buys a club and then builds a new stadium, and what chance of that? Zilch. If a multi-billionaire is going to come in and buy the club, it's going to cost you, as I said, if it costs you $1 billion quid, then he's going to spend $500 million quid buying and making a new stadium. It ain't going to happen, mate. It ain't going to happen. Asylum, director of football, will never work on Sullivan, too much of a megalomaniac. And I think also, again, it's getting the right manager as well. If you're going to get someone who's going to buy, you want someone who's a coach. I mean, we did a opposition chat with Henry, the Chelsea fan, and he was saying about, Chelsea have got like these faceless people who buy players, and then Leo Rossini has to put them into the system to make them work. And I just don't think West Ham, because when we tried that, we bought players. We bought 𝗵𝗁𝗍𝗓 not to go into the first team. 𝗵𝗁𝗍𝗓 was bought as a project player, but everyone said we need to pay 25 million. We're not used to having those projects. We want buy play. West Ham fans buy players, get them in the side. This whole 𝗵𝗁 thing. 𝗵𝗁 is a project player. We're going to see what he's like. He's not going to the first team. But we can't comprehend that as fans. I think we're like, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? We even had Tim Vickery on. We spoke about 𝗵𝗁𝗍𝗓 to say, look, this guy's coming in as a project. He's not coming in to go into the first team. It may take him 18 months, 2 years until he gets into the first team. And before that period has been up, he's off. I think Arsenal will slip up. I think they will too. We literally just a brand name, as any player buyer doesn't even own the players long term, so we're a badge. Well, no one, yeah, I mean, but you're right. I mean, no, there's what's there to buy? Do you know what I mean? Sullivan would always undermine a director of football. Yeah, fair enough. Did anyone see the three guys? Yes, so Ellis, Alfie, on away days. It's very interesting. And I messaged out because I know him well. Because I was like, why the fuck didn't you tell me? Because Alfie said I would have put an Alfie track on as well. And actually, they're about 2 blocks away from my bloody box. And I was like, why didn't you tell me you're there? They had a horrible time getting there. Horrible time. I think also the fact is they were like, well, why are so many people outside? Well, also we had the 15-minute protest as well. So there were still a lot of people milling around. But yeah, it didn't look good, did it? Eddie said his tickets cancelled. Then they had to walk all the way around to the box office to get new tickets. And then they had to walk all the way back. But by then the gates were shut because you couldn't walk through. You had to walk out over the bridges and through. Then they paid it wasn't a good thing. Yeah. Yeah, I think because Ellis's name, they got blocked. It's like, well, how can you block someone? It's a fucking YouTuber. He's going to come in and just slag you off if you've done that. Very strange. Very strange. It was really interesting, actually. So check out Away Days with Ellis. Great channel. I watch it. It's one of my favourite channels. I think he's he does some really cool stuff. And Alfie's a personal friend and a top geezer. Such a lovely man. He's friends with Jack. So that's why. I had some friends who couldn't believe we had a beer garden. Exactly. I think we're the only Premier League side to have a beer garden. Interesting take on it, Russ. You might be right. I think with Sky, football's changed. Will FA refuse to change approach like others have done? Will refuse to change approach like others have done cost us? We haven't had any. I mean, we've. I mean, Chelsea are a classic example. They've got very clever people working at Chelsea who find loopholes, and then those loopholes get changed. But by then, Chelsea have already exploited them, and we just don't seem to be savvy enough for that. I think we are quite a. How can I explain it? I think West Ham fans are a very straight bunch of people, straight bunch of fans. We're not complicated. We want to have a laugh. We want to be entertained. The majority of us want to stay in the Premier League because that is where you get the best players, where you see the best players. Yes, if you're in the Championship, you'll probably win more games, but that's not the case. And I think sometimes when we want to buy players and we want to see them in the first team. If we want to spend, with Guilherme, we spent 25 million quid on him, and we thought, right, okay, well, he should be in the first team. But actually, we bought 25 million of him, and the idea would be to keep hold of him and sell him for 35, 40, 50 million pounds. And that was the idea, to buy in players at a younger age group and then sell them on for profit. And that is the West, and that has always been we sold fucking Glenn Johnson for 6 million quid to Chelsea. We sold Frank Lampard for 12 million quid. We sold Joe Cole for around 6-7 million quid as well to Chelsea. We've always done it, but now the price bracket is so where you buy someone,
20, 25 million. Now, for a Brazilian, they could have been fucking like 𝗟𝗏𝗃, or could have been like the lad in at Real Madrid. You could send him 50, 60 million quid. But the trouble is, we've wasted 25 million quid. Guilherme was a good player, but we just never had the opportunity to see him prolonged in the first team. I thought when Nuno came in, we may well have seen a bit more out of him, because being, they could speak Portuguese. They're both Portuguese, so you thought actually there would be some communication, but it just didn't work. But we never really gave him a chance. We never gave him a chance in the 21s either. So I don't think we're set up for that European style of football. We've only, in my lifetime, we've only been in Europe twice, really. And once, twice and a bit, the 𝗵𝗁𝗘 Cup. I'm not going to talk about the Anglo-Italian Cup. But for me, we're not set up as a European. Someone says a working class team. That's what we are. We're not set up to be flamboyant and have even like a flamboyant manager. I think we work better with a more British-based manager. Our most successful times in modern history have been with British managers. Haven't been with Pellegrini's, haven't been with Lopetegui's, haven't been with Zola's. They have been with the likes of Moyes, Big Sam, Curbs to some degree, Pardew. These guys, we've had the most success, not with the foreign-based managers. And it's not because they're foreign, it's because maybe it's the system and what they're trying to implement. But we still want that. We still reach for that. But I just don't think it works with West Ham, what West Ham's been all about. That's not us. No such thing as working class in Premier League. Goes home 100. Totally agree. But we as fans, okay, working class, we always want a West Ham boy in the side. We want the academy boys to be working their way through and stuff like that. And, that's a real important thing to us. If investors could turn to West Ham to a football purpose, would that stand more chance in us getting the ground? No, we would need to buy the stadium, really, and then have the option to make it into a football stadium. Don't forget, and again, people forget about the stadium. That was ours until Spurs and Barry Earn got involved. And then it would have been a totally different story. Because if we were going to be the proprietors, the owners, then when they were building the stadium, they would have made it, retrofitted it, future-proofed it, to become a football stadium. So I know West Ham are going to take it on in a similar way to the Etihad was for the Commonwealth Games. And that was it. So part of and that could have been reconfigured to become a football stadium in the design process. But it wasn't. It was them tenanted. So we would have it for basically 25 games a season. And then the Athletics would still need it as well. It was once that issue had happened, we was always going to be in problems. Until the fans are clear, @𝗟𝗏𝗃 has no home advantage and useless. I think you're right, Frogginwell. I think that, and that's where the likes of Leeds and Forest have an advantage on us, because they've got a home ground and we don't. Our Tom said the same thing. I think one of the guys in that video said, whoever scores first gets an advantage at West Ham. That's very true. Russ, do you think we'll get out of this mess? Yeah, I do. I think we'll get out of this mess. I think with 15 games still to go, we're still there. As I said, the fat lady hasn't sung, but she is in final rehearsals. I was only going to come on for 10 minutes. We've been here for an hour. I know we're not going down, but I've seen relegation more than once at West Ham. I never felt worried about this club. It's very grim times ahead. It could be if we went down. It could be. It might be and it could be the great reset that this side needs. It's a bit like Trigger's broom. We keep adding bits to it and taking bits away. And it's not, it needs a reset. It needs a factory reset. It really does. And we're trying, and I think Nuno's spoken about this sort of squad rebalancing, and that's what we're trying to do. But there's still weird disparages with the squad at the moment. Do a dash says and smash the likes. And he's dressed up as Kirk. Oh, you're talking silly. Okay. I love what you said about being the hammer for the last 50 years. Great attacking football. That is West Ham. What it is, I mean, and not even attacking football. I don't think even attacking football is what being a West Ham fan. It's about having a go. It's about playing with your heart on your sleeve. You might be, as I said, I always categorise West Ham like legends as two types of players: Billy Bonds and Trevor Brooking. Trevor Brooking, silky, attacking minded, Bonzo, grit, determination, and you get players in both camps. Sometimes you get them with a fusion. Sometimes you get them together, but usually they're either one or the other. So I don't think being a West Ham, I mean, that wouldn't say Billy Bonds was an attacking footballer. He was grit, determined, captain, led from the front, put his heart on his sleeve. And again, I'm not comparing him, but I'm not comparing Billy Bonds to Thomas Souček, but that's what Souček is, isn't he? He puts the shift in. He knows he's not the most talented player on the pitch, but fuck, he'll try his heart out. Whereas someone like Somerville or Bowen, these are more silkier players, and but you still want them to put a shift in, and that's what it is about the West Ham way. That's what it is about being West Ham. Is putting a shift in. It is running for that. Like that's why people used to love Colton, and that's why people are really into Tatty at the moment. He chases down fucking everything, literally balls which he no chance to get him. Still puts the effort in. People give him a clap. That's it. Didn't the Biscuit Barons refuse a purpose-built stadium? To be honest, I don't know the ins and outs, but the Biscuit Barons really didn't have much to talk about, really, did they? Because they were going to be off ski pretty sharpish. And, then the option was when, Sullivan and Gold came in, the Olympic Stadium was something they wanted to bring in. And as I said, we could have had it permanently, realistically. And that would have been very different. And Fitz was lucky to see both. Congratulations. I unfortunately wasn't. I saw Billy as a manager. I saw Trevor as a manager, but never saw him on the pitch. Joined us because we play football in the correct way, says Leon. Yeah, well, I suppose, but you're not going to have, not every one of those players were attack-minded. You had your Jeff Pikes. You had, those types of players who were going to allow the likes of Liam Brady to be the lovely football players. You know what I mean? And I think every decent side of West Ham has had one of those players or a couple of those players who will do the graft. And that's what it is about being a West Ham. It is West Ham. He's putting the graft in, putting the stint in. It's something which, until recently, I don't think we've had a lot of players who've done that in the squad this season. And I think, in a weird way, not in a weird way, but sort of a catalyst was bringing in Tatty and Pablo because, give them credit. They don't stop running. Tatty, he really does pressurise the centre-backs and the goalkeepers, and I love that. And Pablo is just a really awkward player. Really awkward, gets his arse in the way, gangly, all limbs, and again, I still haven't warmed to him in terms of a football perspective, but in terms of an effort, love him. He gives it. Right, guys, I'm going to go to bed. Same here, blood, mud, and occasional glory. Very occasional, frog in the well. Anyway, I'm going to go to bed because I could be up in the morning. Take Flo to musical theatre, clean the house, and then get ready for the West Ham game later on. If you're new around here, don't forget to like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Don't forget to follow us as well because I have no doubt we're going to have a shitload of activity over the next couple of days. Probably not tomorrow, but Sunday, Monday, definitely. We're going to have that. And I appreciate you all coming on and letting me just warble on for an hour and 10 minutes. It wasn't really intended to, but sometimes the moment just grabs you, don't it? Just grabs you. You think, do you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to have a chat. But anyway, if you're new around here, give a like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Also, go and check us out on our other platforms. On TikTok, get involved with that. We do lots of behind-the-scenes footage of stuff. X, Facebook, join our Facebook community. We're live on Facebook at the moment as well. We've got a community of about 15,000, 16,000 there. Go out and get involved. Lots of good chat. We put up posts. We ask you comments, that type of thing. And on X as well, on Instagram. Always helps out. Anyway, have a lovely rest of the evening, or for everyone, or actually for those of you in America, you've got a lot of the evening to go. For us in the UK, it's beddy by time. Much love. Peace out, mofos.